And now we're going to move on to our last topic here is OKC with the upset over the Pelicans, 123 and 118 game. And I thought that this game was going to be I was giving the edge to New Orleans because I'm like, they're at home. They have Brandon Ingram. They have CJ McCollum. They played in a couple big games before, been to the playoffs. Maybe they would have that game. But the performances of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Josh Giddey, and Lu Dort, tremendous for a team that's not really been in the playoffs. I believe Lu Dort was on the team with Chris Paul that got to the playoffs in the bubble. For those guys to go out there and play as poised as they did and really, really, really impact the game how they did was impressive. Like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 32 points, but the way he was getting his buckets, the way that he was playing defense, the way that he was getting to the bucket and basically shouldering guys off and creating creativity around the bucket, able to get any shots he wanted, was very telling. Despite they put Herb Jones on him, they put Trey Murphy on him, they put different looks on him, and he was still able to get his shots off. And for him to do that, and Josh Giddey, who's a young player too as well, had a big game, 31, 10, and 9, nearly a triple-double. And I was like, yo, he's got to get that last rebound to get that triple-double, right? But for those guys to go in there like that, especially Josh Giddey, who's never had that playoff experience, to get in there and play like that, be as creative as he was, there were some mistakes there from this young team, but for them to hang on and continue to fight and continue to pour it on and continue to just lead those guys like that. And Lu Dort, I did not think he had that type of offensive game as well. We saw moments of that, but we've really seen the growth in this game where he's athletic. He can get up, he can defend. And now he's shooting the ball real well. And it's like that wasn't a part of his game. And it's like, damn, like these guys, Sam Presti really does it again. He's gotten all these guys together. Jalen Williamson, both of them, Josh Giddey, Isaiah Joe, I believe, off the bench. All these guys that they come in there and they just play well, right? Like they just able to just attack. They run their offensive system. I can't remember the coach's name, Dagonot. I can never pronounce his name right, but his impact and being able to get these guys ready, be aggressive, be able to attack, be able to stay in the flow of things. And that's one thing I can speak about this team. They compete, right? This game was highly competitive on both sides of the ball. People look at the score and say, oh, they don't play defense. If you watch the game, this was a highly intensive game, a lot of mismatching, a lot of chess game, a lot of matchups there where they were basically attacking each other and finding out ways to score and defend and switches. Everything was tough in this game down to the wire. Everything was tough. But we move on to the Pelicans side of things. And, you had Brandon Ingram, who was very good in the game. I thought he played well. Had 30 points, was able to facilitate, and I thought he played well. And that's something that over the course of the season, where they were talking about Brandon Ingram getting the ball in his hands as a facilitator more than a scorer, he was able to do that, and you were able to see that over the course of the game. I thought a big thing that hurt the Pelicans was Valanciunas going down. He hurt his foot late in the fourth quarter, and that kind of changed where he was really getting it going, really gave them the lead at one point with a corner three, and you just saw him hurt his foot, and it's just he had to come out the game. And that sucks because he was the advantage for the Pelicans, especially inside on the boards, Had 18 boards and 16 points. He was playing really well. And I thought that was a factor where his size was giving OKC problems. And when he came out the game, that was an issue. Herb Jones had 20 points, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds. So you look at his performance, still continuing to play hard. CJ McCollum had a tough night. Trey Murphy III, they went to him a lot. They went to him a lot in that game, and I was like, okay, he's got some game, and he was able to put up some shots, but not really efficient. But when you're looking at Brandon Ingram, his growth as a player, who's really the standout right now for the New Orleans Pelicans, with 30 and 7, and I was really impressed by his game. I thought he played really well. I thought he did enough things to win. And, of course, a couple late turnovers there by the Pelicans hurt them. And you're just looking at the outlook of the season for them. A team that was in first place in the Western Conference. Yes, a lot of teams are injured over the course of the season, but they were playing well, and that was with multiple guys out, multiple injuries. But the injuries to Zion has hurt this team the most, and they're not in that position anymore. And it's like, damn, when you really look how good they were playing earlier in the season and how impactful Zion was, and now you're hearing his recent comments where he's like, yo, I'm just not ready yet. That sucks. And now they're eliminated. So now they're going to have a long off season. They have a couple options to make here, but I think going forward they have good nucleuses like Trey Murphy III, Herb Jones, Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson. If this team can just get healthy at some point, and that's been the talk of the town for New Orleans since drafting Zion. If this even before that, when you look at their history with Anthony Davis and Eric Gordon and DeMarcus Cousins, like even further than that, other guys just always in and out of the lineup, not being healthy. It seems to just be the same old song, despite the medical changes, despite the improvements they made there. There still seems to be this injury bug with this team because CJ was down at multiple times during the season. Brandon Ingram had that toe injury, and I think he had a concussion randomly. Zion Williamson with his hamstring when he was playing really well and had them in first place. So to sit there and turn around and see this team continue to struggle with injuries, continue to struggle team-wise, record-wise, and them have this type of talent, have that type of intensity of the team. Jackson Hayes, have all these guys, Larry Nance. You have all these guys that can play and put it together, and it's just like they will provide all these problems for a lot of teams, healthy, whatever the case may be, against these other top-tier teams, and just not able to stay healthy. Even Jose Alvarado's hurt. So now you're looking there and you're just like, damn, what? Like, how can they put it together? And it's just really the injuries to Zion, Jose Alvarado, really hurt this team. They wouldn't even be in this position, honestly, if they had those guys healthy, in my opinion. Even if the whole West was healthy, I still think they would either be in 7th place or 6th place. They will be able to be one of the top better teams in the Western Conference. So to see this continuously happen for them, that sucks. Like, that's really tough for the Pelicans, and they got to get Zion healthy. Whatever they got to do to get that guy right, they got to figure out a way. They already invested the money in him. He's going to be stuck there. You're going to be stuck with him. And it's like, we got to figure out a way to get this guy. Like, New Orleans deserves it. That crowd is wild. They show up all the time. They support their team. They deserve to have a good team, and especially one of the better teams where David Griffin didn't have the best showing there early on. He's been able to turn around and put together a really good team with a really good nucleus. And it's like, can they just stay healthy? That seems to be the major concern with the Pelicans. Can they stay healthy? And can they win basketball games? And I believe they can if they're healthy, and they got to get there at some point. Moving on to play-in success. Like, all these games have been entertaining. I thought I was going to go to sleep early and be like, yeah, I can't watch this game. But I ended up staying up and watching these games. The games are highly competitive. Some of these games, some of these teams get down big. But the way they come back and the way they fight for their season, this is what the play-in was supposed to be. I believe everybody's watching this game. You have DeAndre DeRozan making an impact as a fan. You got the Lakers, main big market TV, big market team playing in the play-in, possibly setting up different matchups out west. You got Chicago, you got Miami, you got Atlanta, you got Toronto, you got all these teams that are highly competitive. We see the young OKC Thunder going on now to face Minnesota and have a chance as a 10 seed to get to the playoffs. That's the first time this has happened in the play-in. That's in play right now. That's in play right now. And to get that potentially with all these teams fighting, this is what the NBA wanted. All these teams to be competitive and really put on a show. OKC, I'm very impressed by. They're going on to face Minnesota and have a real good chance. Chicago has a chance to be another 10 seed and get in. All these road teams winning. The only home team that won in the play-in so far has been the Los Angeles Lakers. But you look at what Atlanta was able to do. You look at what Chicago was able to do. You look at what Oklahoma City was able to do as a really young team. To go in there and win those games on the road, kudos to them. And the play-in has been a success, even though some of these teams, I feel like they would have been better if they were healthy. But this is what the NBA wanted. They wanted big-time matchups. We're getting them. We're getting competitive basketball. These guys are showing up, and I love it. The play-in, keep it going, especially if we're going to get more, especially when talent like this is in the league from top to bottom. You're literally seeing the talent in the league right now. Although Anthony Edwards didn't have a good showing, he can possibly have a great showing on Friday. You got Lu Dort, you got Josh Giddey, you got SGA, you got DeMar DeRozan, you got Zach LaVine, you got LeBron James, you got Anthony Davis. You got all these guys in here, and the plans has been a success to me. And I think we're going to continue on Friday. I think those games could be letdowns. especially with the outlook of certain things. I don't know what the outlook of Anthony Edwards is in Minnesota. Rudy Gobert should be back, so that will be interesting for that game if needed. I think that he should play that game and try to really impose his will and make it up to the team to get them into the playoffs. Because if they don't make the playoffs, their whole season has been a disaster anyway. To not make the playoffs in your first season as the big trade acquisition, that will be devastating for him. Miami Heat putting a shot to the end of their season that has been injury-filled and stagnant and has looked like they're at the end of their run. That's going to be interesting. And to see OKC possibly make it as a 10 seed, a young team like that, what more can you want in the play, right? But that will do it for episode 40. We'll continue to move on with playoff talk. Ring takes will be returning next week. I didn't feel like there was enough to talk about really this week. So hopefully something transpires where we can bring up more wrestling topics. We're also going to be starting our GOAT debate in wrestling. And I wanted to do this post-merger. I want to say 1980 onward because, the Bruno Sammartinos and all those other guys that basically grew the wrestling business early on. I'm not really going to include those guys. We're going to pay homage to those guys. Those guys are great, of course. Pedro Morales and all those other guys, yes, those guys are great. But we're really just going to start from 1980s onward. So that's Hulk Hogan, Macho Man Randy Savage, and others. But that's just the time period we're trying to think of as we start this GOAT debate and start the bracket and move on. As we move on to in basketball, I'm going to be on the Mr. Vincent podcast today, hopefully today, later on, as we talk basketball and get that stuff going. Check out his podcast. He talks about wrestling and basketball as well as among other things. I'm going to be on that today. So, of course, you guys check that out as well. Continue to like, comment, and subscribe. As always, I like the interaction with the fans and talking basketball. Hopefully, I'm a new fresh face in this field. And it'll be interesting to talk to you guys about basketball because I love it. And I love talking to it. I love having conversations and debates about it. Let's continue to do that. But that will do it for episode 40 here. And until next time, thank you for joining me.